Claire Montgomery had spent 18 months planning this moment. Not 3 years of marriage, 18 months of careful, meticulous planning. The abuse started slowly after their wedding, escalated over the first year, and became unbearable 6 months ago when Marcus broke her wrist during an argument about her disrespectful tone. 2 days ago, Marcus had mentioned wanting to start trying for a baby. "You'd make a wonderful mother," he'd said, touching her stomach possessively. Claire knew if she got pregnant, she'd never escape. That conversation made her decision. It was now or never. The story opened on Claire in her bathroom at 4:47 in the morning, the only room in the apartment with a lock Marcus hadn't removed. She wore long sleeves despite the summer heat. She stared at her reflection, practicing her going-to-work face, the one that hid everything. Today was different. Today was the day. She'd thought of everything. She'd been skimming $20 to $40 from grocery money for 18 months, hiding cash in a place Marcus would never look. $2,400 total. She'd bought a plane ticket 6 months ago using a prepaid credit card purchased at a gas station, had it emailed to her work address, and memorized the confirmation number before deleting every trace. She'd been accidentally leaving her wedding ring at home more often, so when she left it today on the bathroom counter, it wouldn't seem suspicious. She'd told Marcus she was taking a double shift, covering for a coworker who was sick. 16 hours, 6 in the morning to 10 at night. It was the perfect cover. He wouldn't expect her home until nearly 11. By then, she'd be in Seattle. She wore layers, work scrubs over regular clothes, so she could change in an airport bathroom and become less recognizable. She was leaving her phone at the clinic, in her locked desk drawer, plugged in and still pinging her location. She'd set up a delayed text to send at 12:30. "Busy day, love you, home by 6. She'd be airborne by then. Most importantly, she'd been documenting everything for months. Photos of bruises, date-stamped. Audio recordings of his threats, saved to a cloud account he didn't know existed. Medical records from the emergency room visits she'd claimed were accidents. If Marcus tried to follow her or claim she'd abandoned their marriage, she had evidence. She'd thought of everything. She'd been so careful. She left for work at 6:15, kissed Marcus goodbye, forcing herself not to flinch when he grabbed her waist possessively, and walked out the door of their apartment for the last time. At the clinic, Claire went through her morning shift on autopilot. She was a good nurse, organized, compassionate, calm in emergencies. Her coworkers didn't know what she went home to every night. She'd gotten too good at hiding it. The bruises were always in places her scrubs covered. The fear was always buried under professional competence. At 10:30, during her scheduled break, she went to the staff bathroom. She changed out of her scrubs into jeans and a plain sweater, pulled her hair into a different style, put on sunglasses. She left her scrubs neatly folded in her locker with a handwritten note for her supervisor. "Family emergency, had to leave suddenly. We'll call tomorrow to explain." It was vague enough to buy time, specific enough to seem legitimate. She left through the staff entrance, the back door that opened onto a side street. She walked 2 blocks to a busier main street, keeping her head down, checking constantly to see if anyone was following. Only when she was sure she was alone did she flag down a traditional taxi, not an app-based rideshare, nothing digital. She paid the elderly driver in cash. "Airport, please. Main terminal." At 11 o'clock, she walked into the airport. Her flight left at 1:45. She had nearly 3 hours to kill, but she couldn't relax. Every announcement made her jump. Every man in a dark jacket made her freeze. Every time someone walked past her too quickly, she flinched. She went to a bathroom to change again, her third outfit of the day, making herself even less recognizable than when she'd left home. She was pulling the new shirt over her head when she felt something hard and unfamiliar in the side seam of her purse. Her hands stilled. Slowly, carefully, she ran her fingers along the lining. There, something rectangular and solid, sewn into the fabric between the outer layer and the inner lining. Her blood turned to ice. 2 weeks ago, Marcus had come home with a gift. A new purse, expensive leather, beautiful. "Your old one was so worn out," he'd said with that smile that used to charm her, and now just made her wary. "You deserve something nice. I saw this and thought of you." She'd accepted it to avoid an argument. She'd transferred everything from her old purse to the new one and thought nothing of it. Now, with shaking hands, she found a small tear in the lining seam and reached inside. Her fingers closed around a small phone. Basic, cheap, not one she'd ever seen before. She pulled it out. The screen showed a battery icon, 73%, active, transmitting. He'd been tracking her. Not through her phone, through a phone she didn't even know she was carrying. How long had it been active? 2 weeks? Longer? Had he somehow sewn it into the lining of her old purse months ago and transferred it when he gave her the new one? It didn't matter. What mattered was, he knew. He knew she'd left the clinic. He knew she was at the airport. He might already be on his way. Claire had 2 choices: abort the plan and go back home to face the consequences of trying to leave, or get through security immediately and pray she could board before he arrived. She chose to run. She shoved the tracking phone into a trash can, grabbed her single carry-on bag, and walked as quickly as she could without running toward the security checkpoint. Her heart hammered against her ribs, her vision tunneled. 3 years of abuse and 18 months of planning were about to end with Marcus dragging her back home. The ticketing and check-in area was crowded. Summer travel season, families with crying children, business travelers arguing with gate agents about upgrades. Claire kept her head down, trying to blend in, trying to be invisible. Then she saw him. Marcus, pushing through the crowd near the main entrance, his face red, his jaw set in that way that meant he was furious and someone was going to pay for it. She knew that look. She'd seen it before, every time he'd hurt her. She was still 30 feet from the security checkpoint entrance. He was going to reach her first. And then what? He'd make a scene, play the concerned husband, say she was having a mental health crisis or wasn't thinking clearly. He'd done it before, when she'd tried to tell her sister what was happening. Everyone had believed him. He was charming when he wanted to be, and she was clearly unstable. Claire's breath came in short, painful gasps. She couldn't move, couldn't think. 3 years of carefully conditioned fear locked her muscles in place. "Excuse me, miss." A man's voice, polite but firm, close to her ear. Claire turned sharply. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair, sharp features, and eyes that were an unusual gray. He wore an expensive dark suit and carried a leather briefcase. Claire noticed several things about him immediately. He wore dark sunglasses despite being indoors. His suit had long sleeves buttoned at the wrists, and he wore thin leather gloves. Most noticeably, he positioned himself carefully in the shaded areas of the terminal, avoiding the bright sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows. There was something about the way he moved that was too smooth, too controlled, like a predator pretending to be civilized. "You dropped this," he said, holding out her boarding pass. She hadn't dropped it. It was still clutched in her white-knuckled hand. But before she could say anything, he stepped slightly closer and said quietly, so only she could hear, "The man approaching from the entrance, blue shirt, angry expression, is he someone you're afraid of?" Claire's eyes widened. How did he know? How could he possibly— "You went completely still when you saw him," the stranger said, his voice barely above a murmur. "Your breathing became shallow. You have a fading bruise on your left wrist, in the shape of 4 fingers and a thumb. And the way you looked at him just now, I've seen that look before. So I'll ask once more, are you afraid of him?" She couldn't speak. She nodded. "Then stay close to me," he said, "and let me handle this." Marcus reached them before Claire could process what was happening. "Claire!" His voice was loud, designed to attract attention, to make him seem like the reasonable one. "Thank goodness! I've been looking everywhere for you. Honey, what are you doing?" "Here. You told me you were at work." "She did tell you correctly," the stranger interrupted smoothly, positioning himself subtly between Claire and Marcus. "She was at work. Now she's catching a flight, as am I. We're traveling together." It was a complete lie, delivered with such confidence that even Claire almost believed it. Marcus's eyes narrowed as he focused on the stranger for the first time. "Who are you?" "A colleague," the stranger said pleasantly. "We're attending the same medical conference in Seattle. Claire and I work at the same clinic." "That's not— Claire, what's he talking about?" Marcus reached around the stranger, trying to grab Claire's arm. "Come here, we need to talk." The stranger's hand shot out, inhumanly fast, though Claire was too frightened to register the impossible speed, and caught Marcus's wrist before his fingers could touch her. "I don't think she wants to be touched right now." There was a moment where Marcus tried to pull away and couldn't. The stranger's grip was immovable. Marcus's face went white, whether from pain or fear or both, Claire couldn't tell. "Let go of me," Marcus said, trying to sound authoritative, but coming out shaky. "When you step back and leave the lady alone," the stranger said calmly, "those are the conditions." A few travelers were starting to notice the confrontation. An airport security officer began moving in their direction. Marcus realized he was losing the public relations battle. He looked like the aggressor now, not the concerned husband. "Claire," Marcus said, his voice taking on the pleading quality he used when he wanted to manipulate her. "Baby, please. Whatever I did to upset you, I'm sorry. Come home and we'll talk about it. I love you. You know I love you." Claire found her voice. It came out stronger than she expected. "No." "Claire, please." "No," she said again, louder this time. "I'm leaving, Marcus. Don't follow me. Don't contact me. I'm done." Marcus's face transformed. The mask slipped just for a second, and she saw the rage underneath. The real Marcus, the one who broke things and hurt her and made her believe it was her fault. "You think you can just leave? You think I'll let you walk away from me? After everything I've done for you?" "You have no choice in the matter," the stranger said, his voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. "The lady has made her wishes clear. Now step back, or I'll ensure airport security removes you. And trust me, you don't want that kind of scene." There was something in his eyes, something that made Marcus actually stumble backward, as if he'd been physically pushed. He looked genuinely frightened for a moment, though Claire couldn't understand why. The stranger hadn't threatened him exactly, just looked at him. "This isn't over," Marcus said, backing away, trying to salvage some dignity. "You can't just abandon your marriage, Claire. There are legal consequences, financial consequences. You'll regret this." "The only thing she'll regret is the years she wasted with you," the stranger said quietly. "Now leave, before I change my mind about being civil." Marcus left, actually turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Claire watched him go, unable to believe it had worked. She was shaking violently now, adrenaline crashing through her system. "You're safe," the stranger said, his voice gentler now. "Come, let's get you through security before he reconsiders. Once you're past the checkpoint, he can't legally follow without a boarding pass." Claire let him guide her toward security, her legs moving on autopilot. She felt disconnected from her body, like she was watching this happen to someone else. At the security line, the stranger showed his boarding pass to the TSA agent, then turned to Claire. "May I see your ticket?" She handed it to him with trembling fingers. He looked at it, then spoke to someone in a TSA supervisor uniform who'd been watching the earlier confrontation. A brief conversation, some nodding, and suddenly Claire was being escorted through the expedited security lane. On the other side, past the metal detectors and X-ray machines, the stranger was waiting. "There," he said. "He can't reach you now. You're safe." Claire finally found her voice. "Thank you. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't..." Her voice broke. "You don't need to thank me," the stranger said. "Are you all right? Do you need to sit down? There's a quiet gate area nearby." She nodded, unable to trust her voice. He guided her to a nearly empty gate, a flight to Dallas that wasn't boarding for another 3 hours. She sank into a chair, her whole body shaking. "Put your head between your knees," the stranger instructed. "You're hyperventilating. Slow breaths, in through your nose, out through your mouth. That's it. Good." After a few minutes, the panic began to subside. Claire raised her head. The stranger was sitting 1 seat away, giving her space, watching her with an expression of calm concern. "I'm Dominic," he said, "and before you ask, no, we don't actually work at the same clinic. I lied to get him away from you. I apologize for the deception." "Don't apologize," Claire said. "You saved me." "I'm Claire." "I know. I heard him say your name." Dominic paused. "What time is your flight?" 1:45, to Seattle." "Then we have time. Would you like some water? Something to eat?" Claire realized she hadn't eaten since yesterday. Her stomach was in knots, but she was also lightheaded. "Water would be good." Dominic stood and walked to a nearby kiosk, returning with a bottle of water and a protein bar. "Small bites," he advised. "Your blood sugar is probably very low." She accepted them gratefully. As she sipped the water, she studied him. He was probably in his mid-30s, though something about his eyes suggested he was older than he looked. His suit was expensive but understated. His hands, she noticed, were very still. No fidgeting, no nervous energy, just complete control. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Dominic was quiet for a moment. "Because I recognized the signs. The fear, the flinching, the way you froze when you saw him. I've seen it before, and I couldn't walk away. You said you saw bruises on my wrist. How? I've been so careful to cover everything. Your sleeve rode up when you raised your hand to look at your boarding pass earlier," Dominic said. "I saw the bruise. 4 fingers and a thumb. A grab mark. Recent. Maybe 3-4 days old, based on the color." He was right. Marcus had grabbed her wrist 4 days ago when she'd been too slow making dinner. "You're very observant," Claire said. "I pay attention," Dominic said simply. "Especially to people who are afraid. And you were terrified." They sat in silence for a few moments. Then Claire asked, "Where are you flying to?" "Seattle, as it happens." "My earlier statement wasn't entirely false. We are traveling to the same destination, just not for the same reasons." "What takes you to Seattle?" "Business," Dominic said vaguely. "I have investments there that require periodic attention." "And you?" "Escape," Claire said honestly. "I'm starting over. New city, new life, where he can't find me." Dominic nodded slowly. "Do you have people in Seattle? Family? Friends?" "No. That's why I chose it. I have no connections there, no history. He'd have no reason to look for me there." "That's smart," Dominic said. "Though it also means you'll be alone in an unfamiliar city with no support system." "I'll figure it out," Claire said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I'm a nurse. I can find work. I'll be okay." "I'm sure you will," Dominic said. Then, after a pause, "May I ask you something?" "Yes?" "When we get to Seattle, would you allow me to help you get settled? I know the city well. I can recommend safe neighborhoods, help you find housing, perhaps connect you with resources. No obligation, no strings, just help." Claire should have said no. She should have been suspicious of a strange man offering help. But there was something about Dominic, something calm and solid and safe, that made her want to say yes. "Why would you do that for a stranger?" she asked. Dominic's expression shifted, becoming more somber. "Because a long time ago, someone I cared about was in a situation similar to yours. And I didn't help her when I should have. I couldn't see the signs. Or I saw them and didn't understand what they meant. By the time I realized what was happening, it was too late. She died trying to escape. So now, when I see someone in danger, I don't hesitate. I help. Consider it making amends." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "I'm so sorry about your friend." "She was my sister," Dominic said quietly. 300 years ago. Claire blinked. 300? That's a long time to carry guilt. Dominic's mouth quirked slightly. "Yes, it is." Something about the way he said it made Claire look at him more closely. 300 years. The way he moved, too graceful. the way his eyes seemed older than his face, the sunglasses indoors, the gloves, the way he'd caught Marcus's wrist with impossible speed. "You're not," Claire started, then stopped. It sounded insane, even thinking it. "Not what?" Dominic asked, though there was a knowing look in his eyes. "You're not human," Claire said. "Are you?" Dominic studied her for a long moment, then, very quietly, "No, I'm not. Does that frighten you?" "Prove it," Claire said. Not challenging, just needing to know for certain. Dominic glanced around the gate area. The other passengers were far enough away, absorbed in their phones and books. He leaned slightly closer and opened his mouth. His canines extended slowly, elongating into sharp, unmistakable fangs. Nothing like normal human teeth. They gleamed slightly in the fluorescent lighting. Claire stopped breathing. She stared. Those were real. They were actually real. Dominic retracted them, his teeth returning to normal. "I'm a vampire. Very old. Very careful about who knows." Claire sat back in her seat, her mind reeling. Vampires were real. She was sitting next to one. In an airport. After escaping her abusive husband. "This is the strangest day of my entire life," she said faintly. "I imagine it is," Dominic said gently. "Should I be afraid of you?" "I've never hurt an innocent person for food in over 5 centuries, Dominic said. "I have ethical sources, and I would never, ever hurt you. You have my word." Claire looked at him, really looked at him. He'd saved her from Marcus. He'd been nothing but kind. "And honestly, I've been living with a monster for 3 years, she said. "At least you're honest about what you are." Dominic actually smiled at that, a real smile. "That's a fair point." "So, vampires are real. What else is real? Werewolves? Witches?" "Some things are real, some aren't. But that's a much longer conversation." "I'm a nurse," Claire said, still processing. "I've seen strange medical cases. Maybe vampirism is just an extreme medical condition I didn't know existed." "That's one way to think of it," Dominic said, clearly amused. They sat together for another hour, talking carefully around the heavy topics. Dominic told her about Seattle, neighborhoods to consider, places to avoid, resources for someone starting over. He was knowledgeable and helpful without being pushy. He asked about her nursing experience, what kind of work she was looking for, whether she'd need to transfer her license. "I was originally licensed in Washington," Claire explained. "I did my training there before I moved to California after getting married, so I'm just reactivating an old license, not transferring a new one. It should be simpler." "That's fortunate," Dominic said. When it was time to board, Claire discovered that her seat assignment had somehow changed. "There must be a mistake," she told the gate agent. "I booked a coach seat. This says first class, seat 2B. "No mistake," the gate agent said cheerfully. "You've been upgraded. Lucky day." Claire turned to Dominic, who was already boarding. He looked back at her, his expression innocent. "What a coincidence. I'm in 2A. We'll be neighbors." On the plane, settling into the unexpectedly comfortable first-class seat, Claire turned to him. "You did this, didn't you?" "I may have spoken to someone about ensuring you'd be in a safer section of the plane," Dominic admitted. "Fewer people, better crew attention. If your husband somehow got through security, which he didn't, but if he had, first class is more controlled." "I can't afford to pay you back for this," Claire said. I'm not asking you to. Consider it a gift, or insurance, or simple vampire decency. Claire noticed Dominic had closed the window shade immediately upon sitting down. Does sunlight hurt you? She asked quietly. It weakens me significantly, Dominic said. Direct sunlight is painful, debilitating. I can tolerate indirect sunlight or heavily shaded areas for short periods if I take precautions. Covered skin, sunglasses, limiting exposure time. But I avoid it when possible. I'm much stronger at night. Is that why you take red-eye flights? Among other reasons, yes. Night travel is easier. The flight attendant came by with drinks. Dominic ordered tomato juice with very specific instructions about temperature. Claire noticed he barely drank any of it. She also noticed he didn't blink. For the first 15 minutes, she observed him peripherally. He didn't blink once. You're staring, Dominic said, without looking up from the leather-bound book he was reading. You don't blink, Claire said. I don't need to. But I do it in public to avoid making people uncomfortable. I'm relaxing the habit, since you already know what I am. What are you reading? Dominic showed her the cover. It was in a language she didn't recognize, symbols that looked vaguely Arabic, but weren't quite. Old Persian, Dominic said. Poetry. A friend wrote it in the 15th century. I like to reread his work occasionally. You knew someone who wrote Persian poetry in the 15th century? I knew many people in the 15th century, Dominic said. I was there. Claire laughed, a real laugh, startled and slightly hysterical. This is the strangest day of my life. I escaped my abusive husband, got saved by a vampire, and now I'm sitting in first class discussing 15th century Persian poetry. Life does have a way of taking unexpected turns, Dominic agreed. They fell into comfortable silence for a while. The plane reached cruising altitude. The cabin lights dimmed. Claire tried to relax, but every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face. The rage when she'd told him no. The way he'd looked at her like she was property that had tried to escape. You're safe now, Dominic said quietly, apparently sensing her distress. He can't reach you on this plane. And when we land, I'll make sure he can't reach you in Seattle either. How can you be sure? Claire asked. He found me at the airport. He put a tracking phone in my purse. He's obsessive. He won't just let me go. Then I'll make sure he understands the consequences of continuing to pursue you, Dominic said. There was steel in his voice. I have resources, Claire. Connections. I've lived a very long time, and I've accumulated a certain amount of influence. If necessary, I can ensure he legally cannot come near you. Restraining orders with teeth. Legal consequences if he violates them. I can make his life extremely uncomfortable if he chooses to continue being a threat to yours. Why would you do all that for me? You don't even know me. Dominic closed his book. I told you about my sister. Her name was Catherine. She was 23 when she married. Her husband seemed charming at first. By the time I realized what he was doing to her, she was too afraid to leave. I offered to help her escape, but she said no. She said it would make things worse. She said she could handle it. I respected her wishes because I didn't understand. I was a century old, and I thought I understood humans, but I didn't understand that kind of fear, that kind of control. He paused, his eyes distant. 6 months later, she tried to escape on her own. She made it to the docks. She was going to board a ship to France. He found her before she could board. He beat her to death and threw her body in the water. By the time I got the message that she was missing, it was too late. I found her body 3 days later. Claire's breath caught. I'm so sorry. I made a vow over her grave. Dominic continued, his voice quiet but intense. If I ever saw another woman in her situation, I wouldn't wait for permission. I wouldn't respect wishes to stay out of it. I would interfere. I would help. I would do whatever was necessary to ensure she escaped. So when I saw you today, the fear in your eyes, the bruises on your wrist, the way you looked at him, I saw Catherine, and I refused to fail again. Tears were streaming down Claire's face now. You didn't fail her. She made her choice. She made her choice based on fear he'd created in her, Dominic said. That's not really a choice. That's survival instinct shaped by abuse. I understand that now. I didn't then. He looked at Claire directly. You saved yourself today, Claire. You planned, you prepared, you executed your escape. I just made sure you got through one doorway safely. But you're the one who walked through it. They talked for hours after that. Really talked. Claire found herself telling Dominic things she'd never told anyone, how the abuse had started small, with Marcus controlling what she wore and who she talked to. How it escalated to breaking things, punching walls near her head, screaming at her until she couldn't think. How it became physical when he broke her wrist 6 months ago, and she'd realized that if she didn't leave, eventually he would kill her. She told him about the cigarette burns on her inner arms, 7 of them, inflicted one by one when Marcus found her journal where she'd written about maybe leaving. He said he was burning the thoughts out of me, she said quietly. He said if I thought about leaving again, he'd do worse. Dominic's hands clenched into fists on the armrests. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. Claire, I need you to understand something. I am not a good man. I've lived for 6 centuries, and I've done terrible things to survive, things I'm not proud of. But if you asked me to, I would make Marcus disappear. Completely. No trace. No consequences for you. Just gone. I could do it tonight. Say the word. Claire looked at him, at this ancient, powerful being who was offering to kill for her. Part of her, the part that had lived in fear for 3 years, the part that still carried Marcus's fingerprints and bruises on her skin, wanted to say yes. But she was more than her fear. She was more than what Marcus had tried to make her. No, she said. I don't want him dead. I just want to be free of him. I want to rebuild my life where he can't find me. I want to heal. Killing him won't do that. It'll just tie me to him in a different way. Dominic nodded slowly. That's a wise answer, and a kind one. You're a better person than I am. I'm just tired of violence, Claire said. I've lived with it for 3 years. I don't want it in my new life, even if it's violence on my behalf. Then we'll do it your way, Dominic said. I'll help you disappear properly. New beginning, new city, new life. And I'll ensure he can't find you through legal means. No violence necessary. Just barriers, protections. Why? Claire asked again. Why are you doing all this? Because I can, Dominic said simply. Because I have resources and power and centuries of accumulated wealth. And what good is any of it if I can't use it to help someone who actually needs it? Because you remind me of my sister. And helping you feels like honoring her memory. Because you're brave and kind, and you deserve better than what you've had. Choose whatever reason makes you comfortable. They're all true. When the plane landed in Seattle at 9:45 in the evening, Dominic had deliberately chosen an evening flight. He helped Claire collect her single carry-on bag. In the airport, he guided her through the crowds with a protective presence that made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. It was after 11 when they arrived at the apartment building. Claire was exhausted from the day's emotional toll, but Dominic seemed energized, more alert than he'd been during the daytime hours at the airport. You're more comfortable now, Claire observed. At night. Much more, Dominic admitted. Daylight drains me. Night is when I'm at full strength. It's also why I could reach you so quickly when you called about Marcus earlier. It was evening. During the day, I would have been slower, weaker, less able to protect you if necessary. At the exit, Claire expected him to say goodbye. Instead, he said, I've arranged accommodation for you. A secure building in a good neighborhood. Furnished, safe. Paid for the next 6 months. Dominic, I can't accept. You can. And you will. You have $2,400 to your name and no job yet. You'll need time to get settled, to find work, to establish yourself. Let me do this, please. She should refuse. She should insist on making her own way. But she was exhausted and terrified, and the thought of trying to find an apartment tonight, alone, in a strange city, made her want to break down completely. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. The apartment was in a building Dominic apparently owned, a secure complex with good lighting, cameras, and an attentive front desk. The unit itself was on the 4th floor, beautifully furnished, with a full kitchen, comfortable furniture, and everything she'd need to start over. I keep several furnished properties in the city, Dominic explained, for business purposes. This one is available indefinitely. Consider it yours for as long as you need it. There was a new phone on the kitchen counter, prepaid, no contract, registered to a name that wasn't hers. In case you need to contact me, Dominic said, showing her his number already programmed in. And a few other numbers. A therapist who specializes in domestic violence trauma, a lawyer who can help you file for divorce remotely, and a job placement agency that works with people in difficult situations. No pressure to use any of them, but they're there if you want them. Claire picked up the phone, overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank you. You don't need to thank me, Dominic said. Just be safe. Rebuild your life. That's thanks enough. He moved toward the door, then paused. Claire, if you ever need anything, and I mean anything, call me. Day or night. I'm rarely more than 20 minutes away, and I don't sleep. I mean that. If you're scared, if he finds you, if you just need to hear a friendly voice at 3 in the morning, call me. Please. I will, Claire promised. After he left, Claire locked the door. 3 separate locks, she noted, plus a security system. And for the first time in 3 years, she was alone and safe. She walked through the apartment, touching furniture, opening cabinets, trying to believe this was real. She found the bathroom and saw herself in the mirror. The same face she'd seen that morning, but somehow different, less haunted. She slept for 14 hours straight. Over the following weeks, Claire began the slow, painful process of rebuilding. Week 1, she called the therapist. Dr. Sarah Lynn specialized in trauma and didn't push, didn't judge, just listened. Claire cried through the entire first session. That's good, Dr. Lynn said gently. You're releasing 3 years of suppressed emotion. Let it out. Week 2. She met with the lawyer via video call. His name was James Chen, and he was efficient and compassionate. With the documentation you've prepared, filing for divorce will be straightforward. However, I need to be honest with you. The process will take approximately 4 to 5 months, even with strong evidence. Washington State has mandatory waiting periods, but we can file immediately, and I can ensure the paperwork includes a restraining order based on documented abuse. Claire gave him permission to proceed. The restraining order was filed within 48 hours. Week 3. Claire made a decision she knew carried risk. She couldn't let her sister believe she was dead or missing. They'd been close before Marcus had systematically isolated Claire from her family. Her sister, Megan, would be worried sick. She went to the downtown public library, used one of their computers, and created a new email account with a generic name Marcus wouldn't recognize. She kept the message brief and vague. Meg, it's me. I'm safe. I'm okay. I can't tell you where I am, for both our safety. Please don't tell anyone I contacted you, not even Mom. I promise I'll reach out again when I can. I love you. Please don't worry. Claire hit send, logged out, cleared the browser history, and left. What Claire didn't know was that Marcus had installed monitoring software on Megan's email account 8 months earlier. One of many ways he'd kept tabs on Claire's family connections. The moment Megan opened the email, the software captured data. The sender's email address, the timestamp, and the IP address of the computer that sent it. The IP address traced to the Seattle Public Library, Central Branch. Marcus stared at the screen in his home office, his jaw clenched. Seattle. She was in Seattle. The city she'd mentioned once, years ago, that she'd always wanted to visit. Of course that's where she'd run. He opened his contacts and called a private investigator he'd used before for background checks. I need you to find someone in Seattle. I'll send you her photo and description. Start with hospitals and clinics. She's a nurse. She'll need work. Week 4. She contacted the job placement agency, and within a week, she had 3 interviews lined up at local clinics and hospitals. She chose a position at a community health clinic that served underserved populations, people who needed help, like she'd needed help. The work was demanding but fulfilling. Her nursing license reactivation went through without issue. Washington had her on file from her original training, and she'd kept her continuing education current even while Marcus had tried to isolate her. Dominic called her every evening around 7 after sunset. He never asked for anything, never made her feel obligated. Just called to check in, to ask how her day went, to listen if she wanted to talk, or simply keep her company in comfortable silence if she didn't. Sometimes they'd stay on the phone for 10 minutes, sometimes for 2 hours, talking about everything and nothing. Her patients, his business dealings, books they'd read, places they'd traveled. Twice a week, he took her to dinner. Always evening restaurants, always after dark, always her choice of location, always somewhere she felt comfortable, always with him, arriving exactly on time and walking her safely home afterward. He never pushed for more than she was ready to give, never made assumptions, never made her feel pressured. In week 4, something shifted. Claire was leaving her apartment for work when she saw a familiar car across the street. Dark blue sedan, California plates. Her blood turned to ice. She knew that car. It was Marcus's. She ran back inside, locked the door, and called Dominic with shaking hands. "He's here. Marcus is here. He's watching my building." "I'm on my way," Dominic said immediately. "Stay inside. It'll take me about 20 minutes. I'll need to take precautions for the daylight." He arrived in 25 minutes, wearing a wide-brimmed hat, sunglasses, long coat despite the warm morning, and gloves. He moved quickly from his car to the building's shade, clearly uncomfortable but functional. Claire watched from her window as Dominic approached the blue sedan. She couldn't hear what was being said, but she saw Marcus get out of his car, saw him and Dominic face each other, saw Marcus gesture angrily. Then Dominic handed him something, a folder, and suddenly Marcus looked less angry and more frightened. 5 minutes later, Marcus drove away, fast, like he was fleeing. Dominic came upstairs. "He won't be back," he said. "What did you do?" Claire asked. "What was in that folder?" "Evidence," Dominic said. "I've had him under observation since he left. I hired a private investigator to document his activities. The folder contained screenshots of his internet history, evidence of online affairs he's been conducting while married to you, records of his finances showing money he's been hiding from you, and most importantly, photographic evidence of him outside your building today, which violates the restraining order filed 2 weeks ago." "How did he find me?" Claire asked. Dominic's expression darkened. "He hacked your sister's email account. She sent you a message asking if you were safe, and you responded from a library computer saying you were in a big city. The library's public Wi-Fi had an IP address that traced to the Seattle area. Marcus adopted a private investigator to check Seattle specifically because, and this is clever on his part, he apparently remembered that years ago you mentioned once that you'd always wanted to visit Seattle. Obsessive people have frighteningly good memories for details. So he hired someone to watch clinics and hospitals," Claire said, understanding. "Looking for me." "Yes. The private investigator staked out your workplace, followed you home. I should have anticipated that possibilities. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize," Claire said. "You've done more than anyone should have to. What did you tell him? What was in the folder besides evidence?" "I gave him a choice," Dominic said. "He can leave Seattle and never contact you again, or I can provide all of this evidence to the police, to his employer, to everyone in his professional network, and to the divorce court. I also gave him business cards for 3 lawyers who specialize in prosecuting domestic violence cases, with a note saying they're waiting for my call. He's facing actual legal consequences with documented evidence. That's more convincing than any threat I could make. He just left? Just like that? Men like him are bullies, Dominic said. They're brave when they have power over someone vulnerable, but when faced with someone who has more power, who has evidence, who can actually hold them accountable, they fold. He won't be back. He's too afraid of the consequences now. Claire sank onto her couch, the adrenaline leaving her system. Thank you. Again. I seem to say that a lot to you. You never have to thank me for keeping you safe, Dominic said. He sat down across from her, maintaining respectful distance. Claire, I need to tell you something. The observation I mentioned, the private investigator, I had him following Marcus since a week after you left. I wanted to ensure he wasn't getting close. I should have told you. I'm sorry if that feels like a violation of your autonomy. It wasn't meant that way. It was meant to protect you. I understand, Claire said. And she did. Because she knew the difference now. The difference between Marcus's controlling surveillance and Dominic's protective vigilance. Marcus had tracked her to control her. Dominic had tracked Marcus to protect her. Intent mattered. Over the following weeks, life found a rhythm. Claire continued therapy, processing trauma in manageable pieces. The divorce proceedings moved forward slowly. Paperwork filed, waiting periods observed. Marcus, notably silent after Dominic's intervention. Claire threw herself into her work, finding purpose in helping patients who had nowhere else to turn. And Dominic remained constant, present, patient, never pushing, never demanding, just there. In week 8, something changed. They were having dinner at a quiet restaurant Claire had chosen, a small place with excellent pasta and dim lighting. They'd been talking about her day at the clinic, and Claire found herself laughing at a story about an elderly patient who'd insisted his cat was the one with high blood pressure, not him. You're smiling more, Dominic observed. Really smiling. Not the polite smile you use when you're uncomfortable. Real joy. I am joyful, Claire said, surprised by the truth of it. For the first time in, I don't even know how long. Years. I'm actually happy. You deserve happiness, Dominic said. So do you, Claire replied. Then, carefully, Dominic, can I ask you something? Always. Why are you still here? It's been 2 months. You made sure I got to Seattle safely. You found me housing. You helped me get settled. You scared Marcus away. Your debt to your sister, if that's what you were calling it, has been paid. So why are you still calling me every day? Still having dinner with me twice a week? Still here? Dominic was quiet for a long moment. He set down his fork, met her eyes directly. Because it stopped being about my sister several weeks ago. Then what is it about? It's about you, Dominic said simply. I'm still here because I want to be here. Because I look forward to your calls. Because dinner with you is the best part of my week. Because when something happens, good or bad, you're the first person I want to tell. Because, he paused, then continued more quietly. Because I'm falling in love with you, Claire. I have been for weeks. Maybe since the airplane, when you made that joke about vampirism being weird medicine, and I realized you were brave and funny, even in the middle of trauma. Maybe before that, at the airport, when you told Marcus no, even though you were terrified. Claire's heart stopped. Dominic. You don't have to say anything, he said quickly. I know the timing is terrible. You just got out of an abusive marriage 2 months ago. The last thing you need is someone declaring feelings for you. I can step back. I will step back if you need me to. But I won't lie to you. You asked why I'm still here, so I'm telling you the truth. Claire sat with his words, her mind racing. I'm falling in love with you too, she finally said. And I feel guilty about it. Why guilty? Because it's only been 2 months since I left Marcus. Shouldn't I need more time alone? Shouldn't I need to find myself or learn to be independent or whatever the therapy books say? What does it say about me that I'm already falling for someone else? It says you're human, Dominic said gently. Healing isn't linear, Claire. There's no timeline for when you're allowed to feel things again. You spent 3 years having your emotions controlled and suppressed. Feeling something real now, something you chose, that's not weakness. That's healing. What if I'm just transferring? Claire asked. What if I'm confusing gratitude with love? You saved me. You've been taking care of me. What if that's all this is? It might be, Dominic admitted. That's a legitimate concern. Which is why I'm not asking you for anything. I'm just telling you the truth about how I feel. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. There's no pressure, no obligation. If you need me to step back and give you space to figure out what you're feeling, I'll do that. If you want me to stay exactly as I have been, friend, support, nothing more, I'll do that too. This is your choice, Claire, completely and only yours. Claire looked at him across the table. This impossible, ancient, patient man who'd been nothing but kind. I want to try, she said. I want to see what this is between us. But I need it to be slow. I need to do this at my own pace. I need to know I can say stop, or wait, or I'm not ready, and you'll respect that. I will respect anything you need, Dominic promised. We can go as slowly as you want. I have literally all the time in the world. She laughed, and then she was crying, and then he was holding her hand across the table. The first time he'd voluntarily touched her since the airport, and it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in years. They did take it slowly. Over the next 3 months, their relationship deepened at Claire's pace. They continued their dinner routine, but now it felt like dates instead of friendly support. They held hands. They talked about futures instead of just presents. Dominic told her about his long life, the places he'd seen, the historical events he'd witnessed, the loneliness of immortality. Claire told him about her dreams for the future, continuing her education, maybe specializing in trauma nursing, helping other survivors. 4 months after the airport, the divorce was finalized. Marcus hadn't contested anything. Claire was legally free. 5 months after the airport, they kissed for the first time. It was after dinner, outside her apartment building. Claire initiated it, standing on her toes to reach him, and it was gentle and sweet, and nothing like Marcus's demanding, controlling kisses. When she pulled back, Dominic looked at her with such tenderness that she started crying. "What's wrong?" he asked, concerned. "Nothing's wrong," Claire said. "I just realized. I chose that. I wanted to kiss you, so I did. And you let me choose. You didn't grab me or demand it or make me feel obligated. I chose it. That's everything." "You should always get to choose," Dominic said, cupping her face gently. "Always. That's what love is supposed to be. Choice, not obligation." 6 months after the airport, Marcus tried one more time. Claire was closing up the clinic at 9 in the evening, well after sunset. Most of the staff had left an hour ago. She was locking the front door when a car pulled up, dark blue sedan with California plates. Marcus stepped down. "Claire, please, just give me 5 minutes. I need to talk to you." Claire froze, her hand on her phone in her pocket. "There's a restraining order, Marcus. You're not supposed to be within 500 feet of me." I know. But please. I've been in therapy. I've been working on myself. I just want to apologize. To explain. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." Claire looked at him. Really looked at him. She saw what she'd been too afraid to see for 3 years. He was smaller than she remembered. Less powerful. Just a man. A weak man who'd needed to control someone else to feel strong. "No," she said clearly. "I don't want to hear your apology. I don't want your explanation. I want you to leave and never contact me again. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police and you'll be arrested for violating the restraining order. Your choice." "Claire, please." She pulled out her phone and dialed 911. "Yes, I need to report a restraining order violation. The person is here right now. I'm at..." Marcus got back in his car and drove away. Fast, like he was fleeing. Claire finished giving the address to the dispatcher, waited for the police to arrive, filed a report. The officer was sympathetic and professional. "We'll follow up with him. This violation will be on his record. If he contacts you again, he'll face criminal charges." When Claire got home, she called Dominic. He was at her door in 15 minutes, and she collapsed into his arms. He came to the clinic. He wanted to talk. I told him no. I called the police. He ran. "You were incredibly brave," Dominic said, holding her. "You protected yourself. You set boundaries. You didn't let him manipulate you. I'm so proud of you." I wasn't scared, Claire realized. Not like before. I was angry. He had no right to show up. No right to ask for my time. I'm not his anymore. I'm mine. "Yes, you are," Dominic said. "You're yours, and that's exactly as it should be." That night, as Dominic was leaving, Claire asked him to stay. Not for anything physical, just to stay, to be there. Because she wanted his company, and she was choosing to ask for it. He stayed. They fell asleep on her couch, watching old movies, her head on his shoulder, his arm around her carefully, respectfully, exactly where she'd placed it. 8 months after the airport, Claire made another choice. They were in her apartment, cooking dinner together, something they'd started doing weekly. Dominic was surprisingly competent in the kitchen for someone who didn't need to eat. Claire was telling him about a patient success story when she stopped mid-sentence. "What?" Dominic asked, noticing her expression. "I love you," Claire said. "Not falling in love, not maybe in love. I love you, present tense, certain." Dominic set down the knife he'd been using to chop vegetables. "I love you too. I've been waiting for you to be sure." "I'm sure," Claire said. "I'm sure about you, about us, about what I want." She stepped closer. "I want this to be real. I want us to be together, actually together, not just taking it slow, actually building something." "Are you sure you're ready?" Dominic asked gently. "There's no rush, Claire." "I meant what I said about having all the time." "I'm ready," Claire interrupted. "I've been ready for weeks. I was just scared to say it. Scared I was moving too fast, or that I'd somehow mess this up, or that I didn't deserve something good. But I've been working on that in therapy, and I've realized I deserve happiness. I deserve love. I deserve someone who treats me with respect and kindness. And that's you. You're all of those things." Dominic pulled her close, carefully, always letting her set the pace. "Then yes, we're together. Actually, officially, completely together." They didn't rush the physical intimacy. Claire needed time to separate Dominic's touch from Marcus's touch in her mind, to learn that physical closeness could be safe and chosen and good. Dominic never pushed, never pressured, always let her set boundaries and change them as she needed. 1 year after the airport, they celebrated with dinner at the restaurant where Dominic had first told her he loved her. "A year ago, I was running for my life," Claire said. "Now I'm sitting here with the man I love, in a city I love, doing work I love. It's like a different life. It is a different life," Dominic said. "You built it yourself. I just helped with some of the construction." "You did more than that," Claire said. "You saved me." "No," Dominic corrected gently. "You saved yourself. I just made sure you got through the door safely. Everything after that, the therapy, the job, the healing, the choice to let me into your life, that was all you." Claire reached across the table and took his hand. "I have something to ask you. Anything. Move in with me, or let me move in with you. I don't care which. I just want to wake up next to you and go to sleep next to you and build a life that's ours." Dominic smiled, that real smile that she'd learned meant he was genuinely happy. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They moved into a new apartment together. Neutral ground, not his space or hers, but theirs. A place they chose together, decorated together, filled with both their belongings and new things they picked out as a couple. Claire continued her work at the clinic and enrolled in a specialized trauma nursing program. Dominic continued his business ventures and quietly started a foundation to help domestic violence survivors, something he'd been planning for months. He called it the Catherine Foundation, named for his sister. 18 months after the airport, Claire got word that Marcus had remarried. She felt nothing but a vague sense of concern for his new wife, and a hope that maybe he'd actually changed. But she also made a donation to a domestic violence hotline, because she knew that abusers rarely changed, and someone might need help escaping him someday. 2 years after the airport, Dominic proposed. Properly. In the park where they'd had their first real date, where Claire had told him she wanted to try a relationship with him. He got down on one knee with a ring she'd once mentioned liking when they'd passed a jewelry store months before. I love you, he said, and I want forever with you, for as long as forever means in your lifetime. I want to be your partner, your support, your friend, your love. Will you marry me? Yes, Claire said, crying happy tears this time. Yes, yes, yes. They married quietly, with just her sister and a few close friends present. Dr. Lin, her therapist, came. James Chen, her lawyer, came. The small group of friends Claire had made at the clinic came. It was small and perfect, and entirely their choice. The story ended not with a dramatic rescue or a grand gesture, but with something better. A quiet evening 3 years after the airport. Claire was curled up on the couch in the home she and Dominic shared, reading a book. Dominic was in his study, working on something for the Catherine Foundation. The apartment was peaceful, safe, warm. Claire looked around at the life they'd built together and felt something she never thought she'd feel again. Contentment. Not just happiness. Contentment. The deep, bone-deep knowledge that she was exactly where she was supposed to be, with exactly who she was supposed to be with. She was free. She was safe. She was loved. And she had chosen all of it. That, more than any rescue or any romance, was the real happy ending. Not being saved by someone else, but saving herself and finding someone who respected that strength enough to stand beside her while she healed. Claire Montgomery had escaped her toxic marriage on a flight to Seattle. A vampire king had stepped between her and danger at the airport. But the real story was what happened after. A woman who rebuilt herself, piece by careful piece, and chose love when she was ready. Not because she needed saving, but because she was strong enough to let someone in. And that made all the difference.